Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene, and today we're going to be talking about a book that I was really excited to read. It's The Fountains of Silence by Rita Sepytes. Rita Sepytes has also written 3 other books, Salt to the Sea, which I really enjoyed that one. Between Shades of Grey, which I don't 100% remember the storyline. I think it might have been the first one I read ages ago. And Out of the Easy, which I thought was quite a good book as well. I do remember that each of them had some sort of thing to quibble about, but gee whiz, what doesn't? So this book was read by my book club. That's the older book club. It's been meeting for about 13 years. And I had been the person to recommend it. When I read it probably close to 6 months ago, I thought this book was terrific. I was really gung-ho, recommending it all over the place, recommended it to my Woozles book club, but they chose another one. And I would have to say that after my book club finished with it, I had to really reassess my original point of view. I think that they had a lot of really strong criticisms of the book. And I think they were, a good structurally sound criticism. They weren't mean, but just it made me reflect that perhaps the book hadn't been quite as solid as I thought. So what's the book about? Rita Sepytes has done a tremendous amount of research on the world of Spain during sort of the mid-time of General Franco. And so it's very much a fascist regime that's in place, and there are the Republicans who have essentially lost the political strength of their party and are being suppressed, or have been quite suppressed over time. Now, Republicans is not the way we think of American Republicans today. It's quite a different animal in Europe. So yeah, it's not like the liberals and the Democrats. It's a totally different world. So what Rita Sepytes has done is taken us into that world. It's at the point where Franco has decided he needs money, and he's approaching certain American wealthy entrepreneurs to invest in Spain. So families are coming because Franco wants everybody to see what a great place it is he's created. And so we have Daniel arrive at a really well-to-do hotel that is meant for foreign dignitaries and visiting important people. And in that hotel, we have Maria, who is, she's fluent in English and Spanish. So she's quite often brought in as a maid on the floors where there are women who need to have problems resolved in English and then solved in Spanish. So that's Maria's role. And Maria is a lovely young lady whose family has suffered heavily under this repression of Republicans in Spain. So she in the background has got a family that is really suffering, including a young baby that is not thriving because there's no money for doctors or medicine of any kind, and everybody's not eating well, so malnutrition. Maria and Daniel fall in love, and so it's an interesting love story of the rich guy coming in, swooping and saving the beautiful Maria, but that's just the superficial part of the story. What we're really seeing is the story of Spain at this moment. Maria basically represents Spain. I think Daniel to some degree represents America, but not fully. He's not a fully fleshed character, and I just came up with that idea right now because I'm so smart. So there are many storylines happening around this love affair. Maria is slowly, very slowly letting herself think that maybe she could be in love with Daniel, or maybe more, she could give herself permission to explore and experience that love. But if she gets caught doing anything, it's too early in this transition period. It's too early to trust that she could be safe. And the repercussions for if something goes wrong, and she can't really predict what could go wrong because there's so many things that could go wrong. She could lose her job. She's the main income earner for about, I think, 5 or 6 people, including the baby. And she has a lot to lose, a huge amount to lose. Daniel, on the other hand, he's just coming in for this basically vacation, a graduation gift from his parents. He's a budding journalist, and he wants to be a photographic journalist, and that's his career path. But his dad feels that if he joins the entourage to Spain, Daniel will have a change of heart and go to university to go into the family business. So that's Daniel's tiny little problem. He has no sense of the consequences, so he eventually connects with different people in Spain. There's a person who develops film. There's someone who's sort of a mysterious guy in the lobby who just seems to know everybody and everything. There's a couple of younger characters. There's a crazy maid who's just sort of a vavoom character. She's slightly amoral. Then there's Maria's family. Maria's family has embraced okay, that's complicated. So there's the son, Maria's brother, has become friends with a boy that he was in the orphanage with. A lot of Republican children were put into orphanages when their parents were killed or sent to prisons to work on labor camps and so on. So these kids are left abandoned in the street, go to orphanages, and now they've all aged out of the orphanages, and Maria's the only one who has a job. And the other two boys are kind of scraping things together, and that's part of the story, is the life of the two boys. And that's a very complex, difficult position, and I can't really go into it without taking a whole video just on those two characters. And that's where the problem starts to arise in this book, is that there are so many characters that have a sort of a storyline attached to them of what their experiences have been in this repressive situation, starting from prior to Franco's takeover of the country to what's it like to barely be described as human. And that's how bad it is. So there are too many characters, although each one of them is super, super neat. And there are too many storylines about the countryside and the city side and the economies and so on. There's just so much wonderful research in this book. It's such a gateway book into this period of history in this particular country. But the love story of Maria and Daniel, which is meant to be sort of, I guess, the glue that holds it all together, is not very well developed. Okay, so if you think this might be headed into spoilers, so if you want to read this book, which I still recommend, just be forewarned, I might blow it with a spoiler. So we've come to the ending, and this is where I started to get a little bit frustrated with the book, is that all these loose ends are not being tied up. And if this had been an adult book meant for people who just didn't love their things all tied up with a neat bow, if she had left each of these characters hanging in their dilemma, much like when we get on a plane and we go somewhere and we don't really know how the story is going to end, you know, is the neighbor going to cut down the tree or what have you when you visit your brother-in-law. We just don't know how these stories are going to end in real life. If Rita Sepytes had done this sort of cliffhanger, then I think it would have been a really amazing book. But she uses the tool of 10 years later, and time solves all the problems, sometimes well, and well for the characters, and sometimes not so well for the characters. But I thought it was a cop-out, and I just think she's a better writer than that. I know in the other books there have been little things that I thought, but I think it made sense to the story. This coming back 10 years later and having things wrapped up, I just didn't love. Plus the characters at that point are, well, let me see, they're like, some of them are in their 30s, I guess. So from a YA point of view, how many teenagers want to know what happened to the 30-year-old? Not me when I was that age. So I think there was a little bit of a what would you call it? Like a misaim or something like that, poorly aimed. And the cat's gonna jump in my lap and claw my knee apart. Here she is, Cleo Bell. She was snoring wonderfully when I started this. So I think originally I would have given this book 4 stars. That's the average on Goodreads. My book club, when I asked if you would recommend this book, nobody would recommend the book, so that makes me a bit sad. I'm going to say that I would recommend this book as a 3-star. with the caveat that you might not like the ending, and if you're really interested in fascist Spain at this time of life, history, then this is an amazing book to open the doors to a lot of things we wouldn't otherwise have known about. So that's my wrap up for the Fountains of Silence, and I still have to say, if Rita Sepytes is to put out another book, if Cleo Bell would let me get off my lap, then I would certainly go get it off the shelves and talk about it too. So we'll just have to wait and see what she does. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Oh, bing bang.